I never believed in the idea of haunted dorms. In fact, when I moved into my college campus, I laughed off the stories I heard during orientation. People whispered about shadowy figures walking the halls late at night, doors opening by themselves, and strange knocks in the middle of the night. I figured it was nothing more than urban legend, old myths passed around to scare freshmen. My dorm was an older building, built in the early 1970s. The walls were faded beige, the hallways smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals mixed with something musty, and the wooden doors creaked every time someone entered or left their room. It wasn't glamorous, but I didn't care. I was just happy to finally be living on my own, away from home. My room was on the 3rd floor, tucked in the corner of the hallway. I had one roommate, Chris, but he was the kind of guy who spent most of his nights at his girlfriend's apartment across town. That meant I was usually alone, and at first, I loved it. I could study in peace, play music without worrying about disturbing anyone, and have the room all to myself. But being alone in that dorm soon became something I dreaded. It started subtly. One night, as I was typing up an essay on my laptop, I heard the faint sound of footsteps in the hallway. That wasn't unusual. People came and went at all hours. But these footsteps were slow, dragging, almost like someone was shuffling their feet along the floor. They moved past my door, paused for a few seconds, then continued down the hall. I thought nothing of it until I remembered something. The 3rd floor had a strict curfew. After midnight, no one was supposed to be in the halls except for resident assistants. That night, it was close to 3 in the morning. I shrugged it off, assuming maybe someone was sneaking back in after a party. But then, a week later, it happened again. This time, the footsteps stopped directly outside my door. I froze in my chair, staring at the door, waiting for a knock. Nothing. I held my breath, listening so carefully that I could hear the faint hum of my laptop fan. After what felt like a full minute, the footsteps continued, slowly fading down the hallway. That was the first time I felt unsettled in my own dorm. Things escalated quickly after that. One night, I woke up around 2 in the morning because I heard whispering. At first, I thought it was coming from the hallway, maybe some drunk students messing around. But as I lay in bed, straining to hear, I realized it wasn't coming from the hall at all. The whispering was inside my room. I bolted upright, heart pounding, and flicked on my desk lamp. The room was empty, just as it should be. My books were stacked neatly on the desk, my roommate's bed was still perfectly made, and the window was shut tight. But I knew what I'd heard. The whispering had been soft, almost like someone muttering under their breath, just a few feet from where I slept. From that point on, nights became something I dreaded. I'd hear strange creaks and knocks at odd hours, and sometimes I'd wake up to the sound of my desk chair rolling slightly across the floor. Once, I found my closet door wide open even though I knew I'd shut it before going to bed. Chris thought I was just overtired and paranoid, but I could tell he was unnerved too when he started spending even less time in the room. The worst night happened right before finals week. I had been up late studying, and when I finally collapsed into bed, it was around 1 in the morning. I remember drifting off quickly, only to be jolted awake an hour later by a loud bang. My heart leapt into my throat as I sat up in bed. At first, I thought it was someone slamming their door, but then I realized the noise had come from inside my room. My eyes scanned the dark room, and that's when I saw it. The desk chair wasn't where it normally was. It had been dragged to the center of the room. I sat frozen, unable to move, staring at the chair as my brain tried to make sense of it. Slowly, almost too quietly to hear, I caught that same whispering again. It was coming from the corner of the room, near the closet. This time, I couldn't convince myself I was imagining it. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it toward the sound. Nothing was there. The closet door was wide open again, and the shadows inside looked darker than usual, like the light couldn't quite reach them. My pulse was racing so hard I felt dizzy. I stood up, trembling, and closed the closet door with a quick shove before sitting back on my bed, hugging my knees like a terrified child. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I went to the resident assistant and told him what had been happening. He gave me a sympathetic look, but admitted I wasn't the first student to complain about strange occurrences on the 3rd floor. He told me rumors that a student had taken his own life in one of the rooms years ago, and since then, residents always reported strange activity, especially if they were living alone. That night, I couldn't bring myself to stay in the room. I packed a bag and slept on a friend's couch across campus. Even though part of me felt embarrassed, another part of me knew I had made the right choice. When I finally returned to my dorm a few days later, something inside me felt different. The room no longer felt like mine. The walls felt closer, the air heavier. Even when Chris was there, I couldn't shake the sense of being watched. By the time the semester ended, I requested a transfer to another dorm. I never told my parents the full story. They would have thought I was being dramatic. But even now, years later, I can still hear that whispering in my head if I think about it too much. It was quiet, chilling, almost as if it had been waiting for me to listen. And sometimes, when I stay up too late at night, I swear I hear that dragging shuffle of footsteps again, just outside my door.